Okay.
Good afternoon and good morning, everybody, depending on your time zone. So, myself, Arapalli Sai Srikanth, and I'm in my final year PhD student under Professor Muralidhar Miryala at Shibara Institute of Technology. So, today my topic will be about refinement of commercial boron using high energy ultrasonication. So, I'll be going through the introduction, and thanks to Professor Chen, you have already seen some introduction about MGB2. So, I'll do only a little bit of introduction about MGB2 and advantages as well as applications, following with the motivation of my study and as well as explaining this novel technique ultrasonication, followed by my experiments and analysis results as well as a conclusion. So coming to the introduction, as Professor Chen said, MGB2 was superconductivity in MGB2 was first discovered by Jun Akibitsu in 2001. Although the material was discovered in long ago, it was very late that people have realized that such material can be a superconductor. So major impressive properties of MGB2 are its simple hexagonal microstructure, as well as the ability to produce it using regular sintering. So as you can see, I've mentioned here, the theoretical density is approximately 2.6 grams per centimeter cube. However, when sintered, the density usually is about 50%, which is 1.3 grams per centimeter cube. And coming to the MGB2, it's a type 2 superconductor. That means there is a mixed state involved in the superconductor, which means that it can be it has a Hc2 and can be used up to high field applications. So another advantages of MGB2 is its large coherence length, because coherence length is one parameter that defines a defect or some entity that can act as a flux spinning center in the bulk. So because of its large coherence length in MGB2, unlike other superconducting materials like YbCO, which has low coherence length, the grain boundaries which are hindrance in YbCO can now act as a flux spinning centers in MGB2. This is a huge bonus where we would like to have a polycrystalline material in a superconductor. And coming to the synthesis, like I mentioned, it's a normal sintering can be used to make a robust MGB2 bulk. And once again, when compared to the its primary competitor YbCO or ReBCO, it requires to be a single crystalline material, and it requires oxygenation extra step around a week, and whole processing can take up to 1 month. However, MGB2 can be synthesized in maybe half day. And another interesting fact is both Mg and boron are lightweight elements, so which makes it completely lightweight superconductor and preferred in device fabrications in some specific fields such as space applications, etc. And the abundance of these materials are also high, unlike rare earth elements that you need in ReBCO and other superconductors. So coming to the applications, MGB2, because of its robustness and lightweight, it's been a competitor for every superconducting material in many fields, like transportation in wires and energy and medical electronics as superconductor bandpass filters. And this maglev is mainly the most interesting application of superconductors. So previously, NBTI coils were the primary choice for superconducting coil-based magnets in maglevs, but however, MGB2 having more TC like 39 Kelvin, which is 20 Kelvin above NBTI, can help in usage of other liquids, cryogenic liquids, instead of liquid helium, which is scarce. So coming to the motivation of my study is like we have seen, like primary flux spinning centers are grain boundaries in MGB2. We have also seen Dr. Chen using dysprosium oxide and lanthanum oxide to improve the grain boundary pinning. So in this technique, we try to manipulate the precursor particle size so that we'll end up with the final microstructure in the final MGB2 bulk. And in doing so, we optimized, we chose a new technique. So what is the importance of this technique is whenever we think about particle size reduction, the first thing that anybody suggests is ball milling. However, usually ball milling involves a lot of impurity formation because of its rapid technique, and we don't want any of these oxide impurities because in MGB2, MgO is the primary impurity that we see, and having boron trioxide impurities in the precursor powder will increase the amount of MgO in the final product. However, ultrasonication is easy and it has no such contamination, which we'll see in the earlier. And here there is a small schematic that's showing that how if grain boundaries are more, there will be high critical current density, and if there are few, there will be low because of lack of pinning centers. So coming to this novel ultrasonication technique, the working principle is usually there is a metal probe which generates ultrasonic waves using vibration. Usually when we talk about ultrasonication, it is mainly used in maybe cleaning some samples, but in this technique, we are using high energy ultrasonic waves generated from the metal probe, which can cause the particles to bombard with each other as well as bombard with the container of the walls, resulting in sharp or smaller particles. And in addition, during this ultrasonication, near the tip of the metal probe, there are tiny air bubbles formed. And as you know, if the radius of the bubble is small, whenever the bubble pops, the forces are inversely proportional to the radius, and this energy can also aid in breakage of the particles. So the main important advantages are this technique is simple and can be easily scaled, and we can also increase the control the power using the frequency as well as the power to the metal probe. And like I said, there are no contamination from the milling balls or oxide impurities, which I will go upon in the next coming slides. So here is a schematic of the ultrasonication. First, we will take commercial boron powder, which is around few microns, maybe some 100 to 200 microns. And since it is cheap, it's a cheap boron. Now we are trying to refine it using a cheap technique to harvest the same final output properties as when we used a commercial high-cost nanoboron. So this is this technique, although may not reach the full potential like a commercial nanoboron, but we are after optimizing, maybe we can reach such level. So here we have employed a Mitsui UX 3X ultrasonic homogenizer. 300 means 300 watt is the maximum power. In my studies, I have used 150 watts and 20 kilohertz frequency. So the medium that I have chosen is ethanol medium, since it is commonly lab available chemical in lab as well as cheap. So so we have varied the duration of ultrasonication with 15, 30, 45, and 60 minutes, and see how the particle size reduction varies with the duration of ultrasonication. So after finishing the ultrasonication, we have heated the powder about 100 degrees centigrade for 1 to 2 hours to ensure the ethanol is completely evaporated. So after preparing this ultrasonicated boron, we have used in making MgB2. So we have used a glove box to mix Mg and this refined ultrasonicated boron in 1:2 molar ratio. This is to avoid the MgO formation when we do it in atmosphere. And this powder, after grinding for around 30 to 45 minutes, depending on the weight of the powder, we put it in a die of around 10 mm, followed by a pressing using a uniaxial hydraulic press. And then after making the pellet, we wrap it with a titanium foil, just because during heating, we don't want any possibility of formation of MgO oxide during reaction. So titanium being oxidizable at about 200 degrees is readily oxidized instead of Mg. And as you can see, we have used a furnace where there is continuous argon flow. And we have used this heat pattern. So 775 degrees for 3 hours was an optimized temperature, which we have optimized in our prior studies. As you can see, the final MgB2 pellet is black in color. Initially, it was brown because of the brown boron color. So coming to the XRD analysis of ultrasonicated boron. So we have done to see if there are any boron oxide peaks formed or any other impurities. And when we see XRD, the boron oxide peaks was supposed to be at 27.8 approximately. However, we can't see any large intensity peak. However, when you see this peak, when you see search for such peaks in ball milling, the intensity of such peaks increases with ball milling time. But however, here in our case, irrespective of the increase in ultrasonication time, there is no increase in formation of boron oxide. So we have also done some semi-analysis to see how the particles are refined. And as you can see, A stands for the non-ultrasonicated or regular commercial cheap boron, and B, C, D, E are followed by like 15, 30, 45, and 60 minutes. When you see B, C, D, E, you can definitely see the particles have tuned down. And also in C, D, and E, you can also see some clusters of smaller particles, which we will see their role in the final MgV2 microstructure. So after making MgB2 with these powders, we have done XRD analysis. And so the main focus in this XRD analysis is to see the formation of MgO, as well as if there is any shift because of the ethanol medium that we have used. Usually ethanol is a carbon-based solute. So when people might have some thinking that maybe this ethanol can induce some carbon doping. However, we have checked the peaks, and there is no such shift in the MgB2 110 peak, which ensures that there is no carbon substitution. And when you see the MgO formation, this is very low when compared to even the normal unultrasonicated boron-based MgB2. So the MgO which is formed is probably because of during the shifting the pellet from pressing to the furnace. So the critical current critical temperature shows that all the samples show sharp transition, and the delta T is less than 1 Kelvin, which ensures the high quality MgB2 bulk, and the TC was around 38.3 Kelvin, and it is also close to the non-ultrasonic MgB2 bulk. Whatever it is less than 39 Kelvin because of the MgO, that scarce impurity that was formed. And the interesting part about this is our main aim was to improve the critical current density, which implies to the improvement in trap field properties in future. So we can see in 15 minutes ultrasonicated boron, you can see 36% improvement of JC when compared to a normal regular non-ultrasonicated based MgB2. And the JC was around 300 kiloamperes per centimeter square at 20 Kelvin. Although this may not be very high, but looking at the cost, this performance improvement is very high. And when you see the longer duration ultrasonicated samples, the performance is slightly dropped, and we'll see through the microstructure why such thing is happening. And coming to the flux spinning diagram, since our primary aim was to improve the refine the grains in final MgB2, and hence because of the large number of grain boundaries and primary grain boundary pinning, the peak was around at 0.2, which is usual when we see in the MgB2. So coming to the microstructural analysis, as you can see, ABCD stands for like 15 minutes, 30, 45, and 60 minutes of ultrasonicated boron-based MgB2 bulk. And when you see the average particle size, the 15 minutes has around 260 nanometers, and the other things, other sample bulks have around 350 and 370 nanometers. First, we have also like I didn't understand why, because of the ultrasonication, the particle size should reduce. However, only the 15 minutes show reduction. And another point is like although these particle sizes have improved, particle sizes are larger than 15 minutes bulk. These are much smaller than the non-ultrasonicated, which is around 480 nanometers, or 0.5 micrometers. So for this, we thought here comes the importance of these clusters. So since we thought ultrasonication is a rigorous process where particles bombard, so we thought these smaller particles, they're bombarding each other and forming clusters or agglomerates. So these particles, when during the MgB2 growth, are easy to coalesce together and become into larger particles, which showed like larger particles than 15 minutes. However, in 15 minutes, we haven't seen such clusters as many as we have seen in longer durations. So we also did some TM analysis to see the how finer the particles are, and we have seen around like even 50 nanometers of small particles can also be observed in the 15 minutes ultrasonicated bulk. So for this best sample, we have varied the temperature and see how the performance varied from 10 Kelvin to 35 Kelvin. And at 10 Kelvin, we can see around 430 kiloamperes per centimeter square, which is equivalent to a good amorphous boron or nanoamorphous boron when it is at 20 Kelvin. So, however, in this work, we have only used 50% of the energy, maximum energy, which is 150 watt. So further studies, maybe including when we do 300 watts and maybe optimize the process further with suitable solute, we can reach much higher JC values. So my conclusion is ultrasonication is easy, fast and cheap way to refine commercial boron particles and produce high performance MgB2 bulk at low cost. And we have seen credible improvement in critical current density, which is around 36% in 50 minutes ultrasonication. And we think that 50 minutes is optimum performance. The flux pinning diagrams showed a peak at 0.2, which justifies the grain primary pinning mechanism is grain boundary pinning. And I have not used the data here, but however, when we even studied the same technique with other solutes, and we have seen that 15 to 30 minutes was the optimum. Even in those cases, longer ultrasonication durations has led to reduction in JC. Thank you.